Hello friends, this is Dr. Sandeep Pakhle, Professor and Head Department of Anatomy, Rural Medical College, Loni. Today we are going to study cerebellum. This lecture is prepared from standard textbooks and reference books of neuroanatomy. Text and diagrams used in this presentation are from textbook of neuroanatomy by Vishram Singh, Gray's Anatomy for students. It is only for the purpose of teaching students and not for the commercial use. If you see the cerebellum, it is a Latin word which means small brain or little brain. It is the largest part of hindbrain situated in the posterior cranial fossa and behind the pons and medulla oblongata and covered by tentorium cerebelli. So this is the cerebellum which lies in the posterior cranial fossa behind the pons and medulla and below the tentorium cerebelli. So here is the situation of tentorium cerebelli. Tentorium cerebelli is fold of dura mater just between the posterior part of brain and cerebellum. The weight of the cerebellum is about 150 grams. And if you see the proportion of the cerebrum and cerebellum in adult, it is 1:8. So if you see the size of the brain and size of the cerebellum, it is 1:8 in adult, while in infant it is 1:20. Now coming to the shape of the cerebellum, it is ovoid but constricted in the median plane and flattened from above downwards and widest from side to side. As I told you, it is situated in the posterior cranial fossa. This is posterior cranial fossa, this is middle cranial fossa, and this is anterior cranial fossa, and it lies below the tentorium cerebelli and behind pons and medulla oblongata. The cavity of the cerebellum is fourth ventricle. So this is fourth ventricle. It is separated from pons and medulla oblongata. So this is the cavity of the cerebellum. Its surface bears numerous fissures. So you can see these are the fissures, and between these fissures there are elevated portions which are called as folia. These folia are narrow and mostly folia are placed transversely. So you can see here these are the folia which are placed transversely. So this is a cavity of the cerebellum, or you can say fourth ventricle, which is here, is a cavity of hindbrain. It is a cavity of hindbrain. Above it is continues as cerebral aqueduct, and below it continues as aqueduct of spinal cord or central canal of the spinal cord. So this is cerebellum, this one is pons, this is medulla oblongata, and here is the cavity. This is midbrain, in which the fourth ventricle is continuing as a cerebral aqueduct, which above will goes into the third ventricle, which is a cavity of diencephalon. Now we will see the how it is connected to the brainstem. So if you see in this diagram, this is a picture of a cerebellum which we are seeing from behind, but through this cerebellum we can see the different parts of the pons medulla and also part of the midbrain. So there are three pairs of large fiber tracts which are called as cerebellar peduncles. Superior cerebellar peduncle, then middle cerebellar peduncle and inferior cerebellar peduncle. So these are the three peduncles which are made up of large fiber tracts which joins the cerebellum with midbrain, pons and medulla oblongata. So superior, middle and inferior cerebellar peduncle. Now coming to the functions of the cerebellum. Mainly it is for the maintenance of equilibrium, muscle tone and posture. It adjusts coordination of skillful volitional movement. Volitional means voluntary movements. So coordination of voluntary movement is another function. And Sherrington regarded cerebellum as head ganglion of the proprioceptive system. So these are the important functions of cerebellum: equilibrium, muscle tone, posture, coordination of skillful voluntary movements and head ganglion of the proprioceptive. If there is a defect in the cerebellum, they are manifested by motor disturbances, including inability to stand upright, staggering gait, hypotonia and failure of coordination. Details of this we are going to study in the applied anatomy of cerebellum. Now coming to the external features of cerebellum. We have already seen it has three parts, two surfaces, two notches and three well marked fissures. One by one we are going to see. So this is a diagram of cerebellum in which you can see there are three parts, two cerebellar hemispheres. This is one cerebellar hemisphere, this is another cerebellar hemisphere, and the central part is called as vermis. The two surfaces are superior surface and inferior surface. You can see here the notches also. This is one notch, this is another notch, and fissures. This is one fissure, this is another fissure, and third one we can't see from this side, we will see it from. So coming to first parts. As I told you, they have three parts, two lobes which are called as cerebellar hemispheres and a narrow worm-like portion called as vermis. The two cerebellar hemispheres are joined with the help of this worm-like part called as vermis, which has again two parts, superior and inferior vermis. So this is a superior vermis which you can see, and here will be the inferior vermis. Inferior vermis is demarcated or separated from the cerebellar hemispheres in the floor of vallecula. So this portion lower is called as vallecula. So this is another view, we can say the anterior view of the cerebellum, in which we can clearly see the vallecula. and this is the inferior vermis, this is the superior vermis. Now coming to the surfaces, it has two surfaces. So you can see this is superior surface and this one is inferior surface. The superior surface is convex. Superior surface is convex. Cerebellar hemispheres are continuous with each other on this surface. So you can see they are continuous with each other. The inferior surface, if you see, this is inferior surface. They present a deep median notch which is called as vallecula. So this portion is a vallecula. This vallecula separates cerebellar hemispheres. The floor of the vallecula is formed by inferior vermis. Vermis is limited on each side by sulcus valleculi. So the lateral end of the inferior or vallecula is called as sulcus valleculi. Now coming to the notches. This is anterior cerebellar notch, which is wide, shallow and accommodates the pons and medulla. This is posterior cerebellar notch. This is deep and narrow and lodges the falx cerebelli. Now coming to the fissures of the cerebellum. There is a primary fissure, then there is a transverse or the horizontal fissure, which you can see here. This is a horizontal fissure, and the third fissure is posterolateral fissure, which you can see here. This is the posterolateral fissure, which separates this flocculus and nodule. So this is a flocculonodular lobe from the rest of the cerebellum. This posterolateral fissure is separating, and the primary fissure is separating the anterior lobe from the posterior, or it is also called as middle lobe. Now first we will see the horizontal fissure. I can show you, this is the horizontal fissure. This is most conspicuous, runs along the lateral, and this is lateral margin and this is posterior margins of cerebellum. Marks junction between superior and inferior surfaces. So this one is superior surface, and here we can't see the inferior. Here you can see the inferior surface. So this lateral or the horizontal fissure is separating the superior surface from the inferior surface. Now coming to the posterolateral fissure. This is posterolateral fissure, which lies on the inferior surface of the cerebellum and separates the flocculonodular lobe from the rest of the cerebellum. The rest of the cerebellum is called as corpus cerebellum or corpus cerebelli, and this is a flocculonodular lobe. And posterolateral fissure separates the corpus cerebelli from the flocculonodular lobe. Now coming to the primary fissure. This is a V-shaped, it is also called as fissura prima. It can be seen from superior surface. It cuts the superior vermis at the junction of anterior 2/3 and posterior 1/3. The primary fissure or fissura prima divides the cerebelli into anterior. So this red colored portion is anterior and this green colored portion is posterior, or it is also called as middle lobes, and the third one being flocculonodular lobe, which already we have seen from the inferior aspect. So in short, if you see, there are three fissures and three lobes. Primary fissure, which is V-shaped, continuous on the vermis also, separating vermis from anterior 2/3 and posterior 1/3, which separates the anterior lobe from the posterior or middle lobe. The second fissure is horizontal fissure, which is separating the superior surface from the inferior surface. From here also you can see the horizontal fissure. And the third fissure is posterolateral fissure, which is separating the flocculonodular lobe from the corpus cerebelli, which are made up of anterior and posterior lobe. The flocculonodular lobe in this diagram you can see with blue color. Now coming to the subdivisions of cerebellum. Anatomical subdivisions and morphological subdivisions. First we will see the anatomical subdivisions. You can see in this diagram the cerebellum is extended, which shows the superior surface and inferior surface together along with the flocculonodular lobe. It has been shown in three colors. This is one color, this one is another color, and this is third color. Now anatomically we have already seen that it is divided into anterior lobe, which lies on the superior surface anterior to the fissura prima, that is primary fissure. So anterior lobe. Now coming to the posterior lobe. The posterior lobe is also called as middle lobe because it lies between primary fissure and posterolateral fissure, which means it lies between the anterior lobe and flocculonodular lobe. That's why it is also called as middle lobe. Now coming to the flocculonodular lobe, this is the smallest of all three and lies on inferior surface in front of the posterolateral fissure. So you can see this is posterolateral fissure and this is flocculonodular lobe. Another thing you can make out, we have divided this vermis, that is superior vermis from here to here and inferior vermis from here to here, into 9 different parts. So anatomical subdivisions. Anatomical subdivisions of vermis first we will see. From anterior to posterior it is divided into 9 parts. 5 of the superior vermis and 4 of the inferior vermis. The 5 parts of the superior vermis are lingula, most anteriorly, then central lobule, then culmen, then declive and folium. These are the 5 parts of the superior vermis. Then 5 parts of the inferior vermis are tuber, pyramid, uvula and nodule. So total 9 parts: lingula, central lobule, culmen, declive, folium, tuber, pyramid, uvula and nodule. From this vermis there are lateral extension in the each cerebellar hemisphere, except for the lingula. Each part of the vermis has got lateral extension. The central lobule has its lateral extension called as ala. The culmen has its lateral extension called as anterior quadrangular lobule. This ala and anterior quadrangular lobule along with central lobule and culmen forms the anterior lobe, which is just anterior to the primary fissure or fissura prima. Then coming to the lateral extension of declive or simple lobule. Declive is also called as simple lobule, and its lateral extension is called as posterior quadrangular lobule. The lateral extension of folium is superior semilunar lobule. So you can remember, just above the horizontal fissure from behind there is a superior semilunar lobule. Similarly, just below the horizontal fissure on the inferior surface there is inferior semilunar lobule. The inferior semilunar lobule is the lateral extension of tuber. Similarly, pyramid has its lateral extension called as biventral lobule. So this portion is called as biventral lobule. Then uvula. Uvula has its lateral extension called as tonsil. So you can see this is a tonsil, and the nodule has its lateral extension called as flocculus. The middle lobe has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts: the posterior quadrangular lobule, superior semilunar lobule, inferior semilunar lobule, tonsil and biventral lobule. So these are the 5 parts of the middle lobe or the posterior lobe, and the flocculus along with the nodule is the flocculonodular lobe, which is separating from the remaining portion by posterolateral fissure. So these are the anatomical subdivisions of the cerebellum. Now in this diagram you can see how they are oriented in the body in relation to the pons medulla. So you can see this is the superior surface, this is the inferior surface, this is anterior. So anteriorly there is a pons medulla. Now from anterior to posterior, the vermis, this is superior vermis and this is inferior vermis. So superior vermis is divided into 5 parts, that is lingula, central lobule, culmen, declive and folium. Okay, and then there is a horizontal fissure. So these are the 5 portions of the superior vermis. Then 4 portions of the inferior vermis we will see. It is from posterior to anterior: tuber, pyramid, uvula and nodule. So these are the 4 portions of the inferior vermis. That is how it is oriented. In previous diagram we have seen in sequence as if they are extending. So you can see here they are extending from this portion to here. So starting from the lingula up to the nodule we have enumerated the 9 regions of the vermis. So this is a diagram which shows the anatomical subdivision. So if you consider the anterior lobe, which is in front of the primary fissure, which is in front of the primary fissure. The parts of the vermis are lingula, which does not have the lateral extension here. Then central lobule, this is central lobule, which has lateral extension ala. Then culmen, which has lateral extension quadrangular lobule or anterior quadrangular lobule. Then posterior or middle lobe, which is just behind the fissura prima. Declive or simple lobule, which has lateral extension lobulus simplex, or it is also called as posterior quadrangular lobule. This is anterior quadrangular, this is posterior quadrangular. Then folium, which has lateral extension superior semilunar lobule, superior semilunar lobule. Then tuber, which has lateral extension inferior semilunar lobule. Then pyramid, which has lateral extension biventral lobule. Then uvula, which has lateral extension tonsil. And then nodule, which has lateral extension flocculus. This nodule and flocculus together forms the flocculonodular lobe, and it is separated from the rest of the cerebellum by posterolateral fissure. So these are anatomical subdivisions in short. Now coming to the morphological subdivisions. Based on phylogenetic and functional criteria, the cerebellum is divided into three parts: archicerebellum, paleocerebellum and neocerebellum, and they have shown with the different color. Archicerebellum, paleocerebellum and neocerebellum. They are also called as spinocerebellum, pontocerebellum and vestibulocerebellum. One by one we will see. First we will see the archicerebellum. It is also called as vestibular cerebellum. So you can see this is a vestibulocerebellum, which includes the part of the inferior vermis and flocculus. The archi means most oldest part of the cerebellum. Phylogenetically, it is the oldest part. Fishes and lower amphibians possesses only this component of the cerebellum, that is vestibulocerebellum or the archicerebellum. It consists of flocculonodular lobe, which is a part of the inferior part, and the only lingula of the superior vermis, which has no lateral extension that we have seen. So flocculonodular lobe and lingula, these two components constitute the archicerebellum. Chiefly they are vestibular in connection, so it is also called as vestibulocerebellum. And vestibulocerebellum is concerned with maintenance of equilibrium, tone and posture of trunk muscles. So that is archicerebellum. Now coming to the paleocerebellum. In this diagram you can see archicerebellum is nodule, then floccular, that is flocculonodular lobe, and this is lingula. So all three parts, they are shown with the same color, crossed lines. Now coming to the paleocerebellum. Paleocerebellum is also called as spinal cerebellum. Phylogenetically, it is next part of the cerebellum. Means phylogenetically first and foremost is the vestibulocerebellum, which constitute flocculonodular lobe and lingula. Later on, during evolution, the next part develops is paliocerebellum, which is also called as spinocerebellum. They appear in terrestrial vertebrates with the appearance of limbs, for example, reptiles and birds. So fishes and amphibians, they are considered as the phylogenetically oldest organisms. Then comes the reptiles and birds. These are called as terrestrial vertebrates, in which spinos, along with the flocculonodular lobe and lingula, that is archicerebellum, paliocerebellum is also developed. So you can see it is shown with the pink color here, this one and this one. So it consists of anterior lobe except lingula, and pyramid and uvula, the only part of inferior vermis. So together it is form the paliocerebellum. This is chiefly spinocerebellar in connection, and they are concerned with tone, posture and crude movements of the limbs. Tone, posture and crude movements of the limbs. So vestibulocerebellum, that is archicerebellum, they are concerned with equilibrium, balance, tone, posture of the trunk, and paliocerebellum, that is spinocerebellum, is concerned with tone, posture and crude movements of the limbs. Now we'll come to the neocerebellum. It is also called as cerebral cerebellum because its connections are with the cerebrum through pons. Phylogenetically, it is the most recent part of the cerebellum. It develops in primates in association with enlargement of the telencephalon. So along with the enlargement of the forebrain or the telencephalon, this neocerebellum also enlarged and developed. It is prominent in higher mammals and made up of middle lobe except pyramid and uvula. So in this diagram you can see this yellow colored portion is neocerebellum. So except pyramid and uvula of the middle lobe, the whole portion is neocerebellum. Chiefly it is corticopontocerebellar in connection, and function wise it is concerned with smooth performance of skillful voluntary movements. So that's why it is neocerebellum. So in short, if you see, it is morphologically cerebellum is divided into three: archicerebellum, made up of lingula and flocculonodular lobe; the paliocerebellum or spinocerebellum, which is made up of anterior lobe except lingula and pyramid and uvula of the posterior or middle lobe; and the whole of the posterior or middle lobe except pyramid and uvula is constituting the neocerebellum, or it is also called as cerebrocerebellum. Now coming to the internal structure. The thin surface of the cerebellum is made up of gray matter. It is called as cerebellar cortex. So you can see this outer part is cerebellar cortex. The central core of white matter, you can see this is the central core of white matter. Then again there are, in the deeper part, there are masses of gray matter, and these are called as intracerebellar nuclei. So outer gray matter, then white matter and intracerebellar nuclei. The cerebellar cortex is folded in such a way that surface of the cerebellum presents a series of parallel transverse fissures. So you can see this is a depression. It is called as fissure, and this is elevation on the surface, which is called as folia. So depression or linear depression are called as fissures. So these are fissures, and this linear elevations on the surface, they are called as folia. Here also, so this is a fissure and this is a folia. The intervening narrow leaf-like bands between two fissures is called as folium, and these multiple folia. Each folium consists of slender branched lamina of central core of white matter. So you can see this is branched lamina, central core of white matter, covered with thin layer of gray matter. So this is thin layer of the gray matter. Central core of white matter, it is being arranged in the form of branching pattern of the tree. So it is called as arbor vitae cerebelli. Arbor vitae means tree of life. So arbor vitae cerebelli. So you can see in this diagram, it is just looking like a branches of the tree. That's why it is called as arbor vitae cerebelli. The gray matter of the cerebellum, which contains the cerebellar cortex, intracerebellar nuclei, and you can see in this diagram, this is the cerebellar cortex, which is gray matter, and then intracerebellar nuclei. Remaining this light colored or uncolored portion is the white matter. The cortex in gray matter, it is uniform throughout. Like in cerebrum, the thickness of the cerebral cortex varies at places to places depending upon the function, but in cerebellum it is uniform throughout. So this type of cerebellar cortex is called as homotypical cortex. The cerebellar cortex consists of three distinct layers, and these are outer molecular layer. So this is outer molecular layer. Then this is middle Purkinje cell layer. This layer is made up of only single cell which are largest in size, and the third one is granular layer or granule cell layer. So these are the three. Details of each cell will be studied along with histology. So you just remember here there are three layers: molecular layer, Purkinje cell layer, and granule cell. In this diagram you can make out what are the components of the molecular. Here you can see in molecular layer there are parallel fibers of the granular cells and dendrites of the Purkinje cells. Okay, then there are cells also. We will see that stellate cells. Then in Purkinje cell you can see flask shaped Purkinje cells are there. Their axons are in granule cell layer, and also along with that granule cells are there, and they are arranged perpendicular to the surface. Fibers are arranged perpendicular to the surface, and in the molecular layer the fibers are arranged parallel to the surface. Now deep cerebellar nuclei, they are in the deep part of the cerebellum. Now coming to the molecular or the plexiform layer. It consists of numerous dendritic arborizations of the Purkinje cells. So you can see the outer layer is called as molecular layer or the plexiform layer, which contains, you can see, the dendritic arborization. So this is a flask shaped Purkinje cell whose dendrites are present in this molecular layer and axon is present in the granular layer, and the cell body is present in the middle layer called as Purkinje cell layer. So dendritic arborization of the Purkinje cells. Then few nerve cells which are widely spaced, you can see these nerve cells are stellate cells here and Pasquet cells. So along with dendrites of Purkinje cells, stellate and Pasquet cells are present in the molecular layer. Second layer is Purkinje cells layer. It consists of only single row of flask shaped Purkinje cells, and that too only their body. Dendrites are present in the outer molecular layer and axons are present in the deep granular cell layer. The outgoing Purkinje axon constitutes sole output from the cerebellar cortex. They exert an inhibitory influence on intracerebellar nuclei. So you can see here these axons are output from the cerebellum, and they, while going outside, they have inhibitory influence on intracellular nuclei, or these are called as deep nuclei. Now third layer is granule layer. So you can see here granule layer. Inner granular layer consists of numerous closely packed small granule cells. So in granular layer there are large number of cells which are closely packed, and these are small granule cells. So you can see these black dots, they constitute the granule, and they have connections in that layer. The fibers which are coming called, that is, mossy fibers, then dendrites of the Golgi cells, then and these connections are called as rosette formation. This layer also contains few Golgi cells. So you can see here this is a Golgi cell and this is a small granule cells. So that is about the structure and features of cerebellum, morphological subdivisions and functional subdivisions. Now details of the connections, their detailed function and applied anatomy along with blood supply we will see in the next lecture. Thank you so much.